My trips. So with everything built out and my application, I have all my requirements. I have worked with my team and I know what my funding milestones are going to be once I set up the trip. We're going to go ahead and just get started. So I'm going to come right over here to create a new trip. And so basically you'll just start filling it out. I'm going to have us go to Haiti. We're going to go to Port-au-Prince. And event code is something that's going to be specific to your organization. So we can just do mission 04 or 05. Country, we're going to go to Haiti. Travel dates, we're going to go in November, so it will only be like 90. We're going to arrive on a Sunday. We're going to be there for a week, so we're going to hear. Registration dates, usually want to open it and have that open for at least a month or so, depending on, again, your organization. So I'm going to make it live on Sunday. And then we will close it after a month. And just so you know, for planning purposes, once you put these registration dates, you're on your live trip page, which we'll show you later, the application is not going to be open to apply until those dates, and then it will automatically shut off at midnight of the date that you put in for the end. Now down here for max headcount, say I know that we can only have a small team of like 8 people, but I want to make sure that I get a good amount. I might want to just put in over, so we can get, just make sure that we're getting a quality number of people. And I'm going to make this adult only trip, so I'm going to put 18 and then 99. Brief description, we are going to be working with local villages on farming methods. Or whatever the people are going to be. This is a great time to put in who you're partnering with, just so that everyone has a really good idea about what they're actually going to be doing. Affinity group, again, this is a feature that we'll address later. If you're a larger organization and you are using affinity groups, or you've set that feature up, you would just go ahead and specify. We don't have any here. Next up is going to be payment options. So we'll come in, say the trip's $1,800. We want a deposit that's going to be required once they're accepted onto the trip. We'll go ahead and put that in. Disable fundraising. This is a time that you might use that feature, again, as if you're using it maybe for like a women's breakfast or a men's ministry, where you want people to come so you know that they're coming, but they don't need to pay for it. Allow fundraising past the goal amount. This is a great feature. A lot of churches and organizations tend to not want to limit people. So, once they've reached their full donation amount of $1,800, that it just cuts off allowing donation. But allowing people to fundraise past their goal, then that extra funds can be used to help along people who aren't getting as much funding, or if you require the leader not to pay and you might be wanting to raise additional funds for that. Hide funding amounts from team members, team leaders. That's an option. And then we go to funding milestones. Again, this was part of your homework. So I know that I want them to be 50% funded, and I don't want to deal with calculating the amount. I just know that I want them 50%. So you can go ahead and put 50%, and this will give the amount that they need to be up to. And then we'll go ahead to the due date. So we know that the trip is in November. So we're going to say September 8th, I want them half funded. Add another, we want fully funded. We'll put 100% here. And again, the due date, we'll go ahead and make it 1 month out from the trip. And again, this is all organization specific, and you'll just want to adjust these dates and amounts based on how your organization works. After your funding milestones, you will have another section that's going to be specific to your CHMS. I'm going to click over here on another tab, and we're going to see some Fellowship 1 options. You can see here, depending on how your organization chooses to set this up, we can add them to different ministry groups, activity, or rosters. We also give a separation for donation funding and participant funding, and this is based on the IRS rules and your organization and how you interpret that. You can make a decision to give the participant credit or not, and as well as the donor who's going to be donating, where you want them to get credit. So they can go into a different fund or they can go into the same fund. And again, this is organization specific, and you'll just want to set that up. We're going to click back over, and just to recap what we've done, we've set up our trip details, where we're going, travel dates, registration dates, ages, and affinity groups and payment options. And while we're looking at this, I also want to point out over here, we have a get help option. And this is something that is going to be persistent throughout all of Focus missions. So anytime you get stuck, you can just click on that, and there'll be various tools that you can use to get through the system. So after we are happy with all of this, we're going to hit next. Next, we can use the trip image. So we're going to click add trip image. We have several images built in. You could also choose to upload an image. So right here, I'm going to go to Haiti. I'm going to select an image. I'm going to move it how I want to make it look good. Hit OK, and there we have our Haiti image. Up next are going to be options for the public page. Again, if you remember from Implementation 101, you have homepage and you have a trip page. So all of this is saying is, do we want this to show up on our public trip page? And everyone will be able to see it who has access to that page, yes or no. Public or private, some locations are going to be ones that you want hidden, so therefore you want a private trip. Or if you're doing maybe a vision trip, that's a small select group of people and you don't want it open to the general public. Show donation goal and progress on the mission donation page. Some organizations do want to hide this because they want to encourage giving past them reaching their 100% goal for being fully funded. Show the destination on the public page. Again, this is if you're traveling to a sensitive area, you might want to hide the actual city where you're going to be and just have the description. Allow people to give anonymously. Again, this is, you would still be able to see it on the back end for your tax purposes, but your participants would not be able to see who donated that amount to them. And then finally, show the can't go give button. And that's great. There may be people who are looking like, oh, I really would love to go to Haiti. That time's just not good for me, but I really want to support the effort. This is a great thing to just leave. So that people can see that. Registration link, this is if you were allowing groups and families, you could give a different name for that. And this is something that we're not going to use for this trip. Categories and filtering. Again, this is something that we set up under components. So we're going to look here. We can set up by ministry. I made this adult only. We can add another category. I had set up location. And so we're going to be in the Caribbean. And then we're going to, I feel like that's good. People can search for those options. We're going to select next. And then we're going to get to the application. Does this trip require an application? The reason we have this, again, say you are just hosting a men's ministry group and you don't need an application. You just want to use this as a sign-up feature. You can leave that as no. We're going to say yes. We're going to go through here. I have my adult application that I know. And again, just to point out, this is what makes it easy for using that naming convention. I can just come in and know that this is my adult application. Do you want the application's description shown? I'm going to say no because I just have that as an internal descriptor and the participants really do not need to see this. Moving on from the application description, we're going to look at the next options for how the applicant is accepted. Right here, we just want to highlight applicant becomes a team member after application submission. This is where they're auto-approved and no manual action is required. We want to be able to look at our applicant and read their application to know if they're going to be a good fit for the trip, so I'm going to leave this as no. Next, applicant can pay deposit without approval. Again, we want to be able to determine if they're on it before we accept any money from them, so we're going to leave it to be no. I do want to highlight this one section right here. For group sign up, this option must be yes. So if you're allowing the friends and family, where you're allowed like a family trip, you are going to want to turn this option on as a yes. And next is going to be allow group owners to act as leaders for their trip. This is if you're a larger organization, sometimes you'll have smaller sub-organizations or partners that are going to go on the trip with you, and you'll want them to be a leader of their own subset group. And also while we're looking at this, I just want to point out on the right-hand side, we do have descriptions of what our menu options are, and sometimes reading those can give you a little help if you get stuck along the way. We're going to hit next. Next is going to be user requirements. So you can see here we have 3 different types of requirements. So again, if you're using it for just like a regular ministry activity, you might not want to use this. In our case, yes, we absolutely have requirements. Prereqs, I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and I'm going to add an application prereq. I'm going to come over here, and I have international prereq fitness release. Say we're going to be in the mountains of Haiti. I want to make sure that people have a certain level of fitness before they go on the trip. And there's a variety of other ways that your organization might use this. This is just one example that I'm giving. And then we're going to go down to post-approval requirements. And you're going to want to say yes. And this is where you're going to add those requirements that we did as our homework. So we'll come here to add requirement. Again, following the best practices for naming convention, I'm going to know that this is an adult trip. Everyone needs a packing list. Everyone needs a document for sharing your document. This is for domestic. I know that I'm going on an international trip. I'm not going to select this. International trip requires a passport. While Haiti doesn't require a visa, we're still going to go ahead and select it just for demonstration purposes. And then when I see this and know that this is a youth medical release and that I don't require it, we hit next. And then we're going to have due dates. And so I'm just going to go ahead and just require everything due on October 1st. So we're just going to get that set up. And while I'm doing that, you're going to notice that there is an L and a P right next to the date column. And what that refers to is leader or participant. There may be additional documents that you're going to need from a leader. So this is a great way. Again, you would add that requirement and then make it for the leader only. And same thing, there might be participant only things that you need. Say a staff member is going and you already have all this information. You don't need to require them to go again. So again, because we did our homework, we knew what our requirements were going to be. We have our prereqs that we need, and we're saying yes to the requirements. So now we're going to go down here and you'll see this feature recommended checklist. Here you have two options. You can add a custom checklist right here that you write up on the spot, and you can have save this item for future trips, or I already went ahead and made a what to pack in your carry-on list. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm leader, participant, and if you want to edit it, you can do that here. I'm just going to say list of items you should carry, passport. And just a reminder for people who might not travel the Friendly Skies as often, they might not be aware of what they can't bring on their carry-on. So we're just going to have an information for them. So it's going to hit save. I'm going to go down here to next. Now, this is going to be a review before we actually launch our trip. So basically, where we're going, the city we're going, the cost, the deposit, we have our trip details. This is going to be the internal code that you put in, your dates, your, if you had an affinity group, head count, your filters, your funding milestones, your description, your picture. You can verify that you chose the correct application. One thing to keep in mind with the application is once the trip is launched and somebody has applied, you're unable to go back and change the application at all. So it's really important just to double check and make sure that you have the application that you want and the application questions. And then you just go down. Again, we're just checking to make sure. This is another handy way where these type of naming conventions do come in handy because it would stick out if you had the wrong document. And then we come down here and if everything's looking good, I'm going to say create my trip.